Okay, Little Rock, grab your coffee, get jacked up. It's time for another episode of The Block Talk, and here we are in Season 3. I am excited to introduce two of my friends, Justin Buck and Steve Biernacki. Did I say that correctly?
Hey, you can say it however you want. Yes,
okay, perfect. Well, I'm really excited to have you guys on the show. We've run into each other in the community for a long time, and Steve, it's your second time on the show.
Yes. Am I the first two-time guy?
You are the first two-timer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, the producers are saying no.
Yeah, we don't listen to them.
Okay.
You're the second two-timer. You're the second two-timer. But what's exciting about that is you're in a whole new situation now than you were before. And you have company.
I do.
You guys are working on some exciting things together. So before we get into what you're up to now, let's talk about who you both are and kind of your story.
Sure. So, again, Steve Biernacki with City Connections. I'm the new executive director there. Been there since the middle of the summer. And we are a nonprofit that mobilizes volunteers in the community. We say we mobilize the church. Imagine eHarmony for local churches and local nonprofits to get things done in the community. That's what we do. And so a big part of that is engaging volunteers, engaging those nonprofits. And part of that, we have an incubator already where we have 12 nonprofits that live with us and that we get to coach and teach and get them up to speed, grow their capacity. But we saw that there was need for more. There's so many nonprofits out there. I think the last numbers we looked at, there's 14,500 nonprofits in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
You tack on another 3,500 to 4,000 churches. Talking about over 18,000 entities in a relatively small state trying to make things happen, and we watch them fall down and not accomplish what they want to accomplish. Well, that's not good. I think, in our minds, we can change the landscape of nonprofits by growing their capacity. And so when I came into City Connections, we already had this incubator ready. And I started thinking about our friend Wayne Miller at the Venture Center and their accelerator program. And so started researching and looking around the country. And there's really only a handful of groups across the country that are doing these types of nonprofit incubators, accelerators, academies to teach people how to be better at what they do. And so my good friend Jay Buck and I, we've known each other and worked together for going on 6 years now. I started bouncing ideas off of him, and next thing you know, we've created curriculum. We've worked together at the 501c3 Capital Conference through the city of Little Rock, and we've just seen all of these small nonprofits that they need help. They're starving for information. They want to do better. They want to know how to find money, find volunteers, find board members, grow their capacity, but they just don't know where to start.
Right.
Yeah.
We want to be that starting block. And so
Steve and I have had that conversation over the past several years. We've known each other for a long time now. We started out, we were both working at different nonprofits, Habitat for Humanity affiliates here in Arkansas. Steve's worked for several nonprofits. I've worked for several nonprofits. And something we kept coming back to is there's just really a big gap here. And the gap is, how do we support these small, especially small to medium-sized nonprofits who maybe don't have the resources to access or to pay really great talent a lot of money to come in and turn it around for them, or they don't have the resources to, do volunteer management better or program design better, or the biggest one that we get all the time is fundraising. How do we support our mission?
Fundraising is hard, and people from the outside, you have a good idea and you start thinking about a way to help the community, and you're like, this will be easy. I'll just go out, everyone will help me. We'll go from there.
Right.
But this is like starting a business, right? I mean, it's the same thing, branding, outreach, advertising, it's all those things, correct? So that's where
And one of the things that Jay Buck brings up all the time, and I didn't even know until we started digging through, is the 5-year cycle for a nonprofit. So if you were to start a nonprofit today and 100 other nonprofits were with you, so 100 people, in the first year, a third of you are not going to exist anymore.
Right.
In the second year, another third of you gone. And by 5 years, half of that last third, so 16% more, gone. So within a 5-year cycle, you're looking at batting 160 with nonprofits that come out. And it's not for lack of passion.
Right.
It's not for lack of desire.
Or need.
Or need.
Yeah, the needs are always there. Or
It's-
good idea, even, because the good ideas, they come flowing all the time, I'm sure.
1,000%.
Yeah.
But it's for lack of understanding what it takes to run a nonprofit business, because it is a business,
Right.
and how to engage people to help you. I tell the story all the time. Nobody needs another nonprofit for three-legged puppies with eye patches.
Yeah.
It's cool that you love the three-legged puppies with eye patches.
They are cute.
But there's one. So
Yeah.
take care of that three-legged puppy with an eye patch, and then let me get you involved with the Humane Society or,
Right.
with the animal shelter. So we're not splintering resources even more
Right.
to help animals, but we're focusing things, and now we're growing the capacity of groups that are already doing amazing things.
Well, and that brings me to another question before we get into the accelerator piece of it. But as far as nonprofits in our area, I'm sure you see like a myriad of them. So there has to be outreach for the elderly, homeless. I'm assuming. What else kind of nonprofits do we have here in Little Rock that-
there are tons of great causes here. Little Rock is a really neat place because not only do we have those small to medium-sized nonprofits that are serving, a local need.
Yeah.
Gosh, we're home to Heifer International.
Yeah.
We're serving international
We feed
needs.
the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're home to a huge food bank. We're home to the Centers for Youth and Families
Right.
that have nationally recognized programming for dealing with trauma among children and building healthier families. So we have, just this huge range of nonprofits. And so what we notice is there in the middle of that range is a really big opportunity for us to be able to maximize and magnify the impact of those organizations.
Right.
And because what happens, when Steve was talking about we're splintering resources, we're confusing the message around this problem that we're trying to deal with, that's weakening the infrastructure that we have here for doing good work.
Well, and I could see where people would be like, I'm going to donate to this cause, and then they see 3 or 4 other things, and they're not really sure, where do I put my money, energy, time, effort, where do I put that when I'm not really sure? So I wonder too, is there a directory, and is that something that when you're helping nonprofits get off the ground, do you explain to them how they fit in and where they fit?
So
in that size?
it's a great question, and as of today, there's literally a magazine, which is great for people who pick up magazines. I'm not a guy who picks up magazines necessarily, and so we're in the works of getting that digitized, getting that put into some semblance of an app, so that I was giving a speech the other day and talking about the people that need help in our city, and that sometimes we get overwhelmed. We think, geez, the problem is so big. How are we going to help all these people? The reality is there's way more of us than there are of them.
Right.
There's way more people that can help than need help. And when you change that paradigm, it doesn't seem overcomable.
Right.
It doesn't seem overwhelming, because there's way more of us. And so let's figure out what you're passionate about. I say all the time, I don't care what you're passionate about. And when I say that, I care what you're passionate about, but I don't care as long as you're passionate about it.
Right.
Because if you're passionate about it, let me get you in touch
Put
with...
you in the right place.
Put you in the right place. And so working on a concept of an app where someone comes up to you in the street and says, yeah, I really need some clothing. I need some shoes. I have a job interview in 3 days, that you can go boop, 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 boop. Oh, there's 6 clothing closets within a mile and a half of here.
Right.
Hop in the car. I will drive you there right now.
Well, and that's a big thing where when you're driving around the city, or if you're walking around the city and you come up with someone that needs help and you don't know, what do? You want to give them money, but then if you give them money, are you helping the need? Because what if their need is actually related to employment or housing, or maybe they have a drug addiction, or how do you determine what you're supposed to do if you don't have the tools, right? Even as a
Right.
resident, especially when you're trying to operate a nonprofit, you have to know where to take them, where to point them.
There's a concept. I don't know if we've talked about it, or I know Cesar, a guy who works with us in the office. I think it's a book, and it's called When Helping Hurts. And there's nothing wrong at all with following your gut. If you want to give someone $1, $5, buy them a meal, whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with that. However, the nonprofits in the city are set up and they already have resources. So they can take your dollar and turn it into $5 or $10 or $20 worth of services. And so it's just super important that you educate yourself on what resources there are in the city that you can already access and support and volunteer for. We were talking the other day, I think the new numbers came out. 1 hour of volunteerism is worth about $25 an hour to that nonprofit that you're helping.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. And it makes a bigger impact than driving by and handing something out, or
Right.
Right. Or
Yeah,
just,
and when you're you talked earlier about being a donor or somebody who wants to give time or resources or whatever. How do you know where to put it? That's a big conversation in the nonprofit world. And unfortunately, the way that a lot of people we go into, like, as nonprofit professionals, we go into survival mode, and we're like, well, of course you need to support mine over so and so. And the temptation is to draw differences or to compare yourselves or to compete with that nonprofit. I am not here to compete with you if you're here to help. Right. I will collaborate with you and we can help together. And that's our message to a lot of people who want to start new nonprofits, or even a lot of nonprofits who are out there with a great model. Don't silo yourself. Don't put yourself up in this silo where you're doing great work for this number of people. Let's break those down and let's work across those, those industries, across those areas of need, so we can do comprehensive case management. And instead of just getting someone a meal for the day, we can equip that person with the tools they need to find employment, to find mental health or physical health needs that they may have, and to meet their housing needs so that they can get into a more stable situation. And we can only do that by collaborating. We cannot do that by competing.
Right.
And it's, I always use sports. Yeah. And I love Muhammad Ali because he talks about, poking at you with a finger. But when you put all the fingers together, he can punch you hard. It's the same concept. And in my time through the nonprofit world, you can always do way more working with others. When I was at Habitat, we worked with recycled bikes for kids. We gave them all the bikes that came into Habitat, and when a family moved in that had children, the children got bikes. When the food bank, we started collecting food at the restores, so we gave food to the food bank. When a family moved into a house, the food bank stocked their pantries. Yep. We started working with Settled Souls. They were putting folks into permanent housing. Well, they didn't have furniture. Settled Souls kept getting all these phone calls to pick up furniture. We picked up all the furniture. They used whatever they needed and donated the rest to Habitat. Like, there's so many ways that nonprofits can grow their capacity together and help each other. Brian Marsh, our good friend at Goodwill, he's got the best line ever, and Brian, I've stolen it, but it's when there are only 3 people left to help, I will fight you in the middle of President Clinton Avenue for them.
Yeah.
With my fists.
Well, people are what make all the difference. And that's the thing, is you can have a great idea all day long, but without the troops to go out and do this work and feed these people and house these people and recognize their needs, because a lot of times it's not easy to ask for help.
Right.
And you'll be in a situation where you're afraid to do that. And also, I see a lot on social media. Where do I donate XYZ?
Absolutely.
I mean, all over the place. And there's got to be somebody that needs that's able to donate it to other people. I know Women and Children First is down. There's all these different places and things that you can donate to them, and they need it. The call. Now they're all starting to click. And I'm like, wait a minute, there are a ton.
Oh, yes.
And what's cool is when you start to get the call, Women and Children First, centers, Goodwill, Salvation Army, Habitat, Food Bank. Imagine a world where every one of those nonprofits took everything.
We need to have a
and
festival
then made
day.
it.
Instead of food truck festival, we'll have nonprofit festival.
We absolutely do. And we've done little bits
Yeah.
and pieces, but yes. And so to that end, we've got a big service project coming up on May 2nd called Party for the Planet. The goal is to have 1,000+ volunteers sweeping across Little Rock. So we're going to have some stuff posted on our website about that, which is cityconnectionsinc.org. And then we're going to have another big Serve the Rock event in September, October. We're going to partner with the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce, a nonprofit. There you go, collaborating, doing something bigger. And so slowly but surely, we're just trying to change the paradigm and get folks to understand I can't do everything by myself. And that goes for the churches too. It amazes me, all the churches that have clothing closets and food pantries and health clinics. Why? Because other people don't.
Right.
If that's not a commentary on where we are, not working together, that churches have to start their own missions within their churches, well, we're doing something wrong.
Right.
And not that there's anything wrong. I want the churches to do
and
that.
Even
but
if it's a good impact, what you're saying too, it's the same thing that you talked about with the Muhammad Ali reference, is that when you pack it all together, it's a whole different thing. So there's just more power in more people.
Absolutely.
Especially when it's well organized.
Absolutely.
Well, and what I love about City Connections is it's about aligning these resources, right? These resources exist.
Right.
Okay. These churches have a lot of people in their pews. They have kitchens and their gyms. They have all these resources. And City Connections is really aligning people of faith and churches and bodies of faith behind problem areas to make a big impact. Steve keeps saying we're here to make a dent in the universe. And if we align all those resources that exist and we line them up with those problems that we can see and measure and impact, we're gonna do that absolutely every time here in Central Arkansas. And that's gonna change people's lives in a way that one-time help could never do.
Right. And even when you talk about, we've talked about on the show before in multiple areas, like how good the economy is or how great it is to be turning over houses or, you know what I mean? But this is a whole different thing. The quality of life that comes to an individual whose life has been changed, then in turn goes to help other people to change their lives. And that human impact and that human mark you make on someone with that kind of assistance and help is unforgettable. And it's something that changes their future, which changes the future of where we live and what we call home.
And it's a perfect segue into a big piece of what City Connections does, which is our program called Operation Restore. We have a temp agency for folks that come through drug and alcohol rehabilitation. The mass majority of them are criminals. They have felony convictions. They're just trying to get their lives back on track.
It's hard to get a second chance.
It's impossible unless you have people that have open minds and open hearts to give that second chance. And so we've partnered with 25 plus companies all throughout Little Rock that get it and understand. And quite frankly, we as we talk about how great the economy is, unemployment is at an all-time low. It's hard to find solid people. We have people coming to us that are welders and forklift drivers and heavy equipment operators. Skilled labor that, if not for making a poor decision, which by the grace of God go I, we could all find ourselves in that position.
Yeah.
Alcoholism, drug abuse, depression, anxiety, all of those things, a family member passing, none of that cares about our skin color, our socioeconomic level, our faith. It just hits you. And when it hits you, if you don't have the family, the support, the friends,
the resources,
it's
really hard
you're going to have a tough
road.
road to hoe. So through this program, Operation Restore, the woman who runs it, Jo Myrick, she came through the program. And now she runs the program.
That's so cool.
And so the level of compassion and empathy and understanding, she's everybody's mama. She's Mama Jo. She's not, just some random person. You tell the story all the time about when she goes out and takes the men and women on the bus.
It's not just, hey, here's a printed bus route map and here's where you can go get your bus pass. Jo will call the day before they're supposed to get out for an interview or their first day on the job and say, I'll meet you at the bus stop at 6 a.m. I'll ride the route with you. I'll get off. We'll walk it, see how far it is from the stop to your place of employment. She is just a human being with so much compassion and, to Steve's point, some empathy for folks who are going through that situation. Because, as a recovering addict, you can see patterns of behavior and things that are concerning. And more importantly, how powerful it is to have someone who walks beside you through that process. And so having that network is huge for folks. Last year, 270 people came through the program and found employment because of Operation Restore. And it's just gonna keep growing. I mean, they have some amazing partnerships in town that are keeping that going. But, talking about how well the economy's going, this and the other, none of that matters if you're a person who's having to survive outside the economy.
Right.
And so if we can't bring folks into the workforce, into stable housing, into these areas where the economy is performing well, it doesn't matter how well the economy does. And so that's one of the things I love about Operation Restore is it's bringing folks into the workforce so they can benefit from an economy that's doing well. And it's changing that. it's changing that felt impact of, oh, I'm hearing the economy's doing well, but my family is really struggling.
Right. And once, like you were talking about, and to be fair, every human being is 2-3 bad decisions away from their whole entire life
You're
being
3 bad months away from absolute permanent financial ruin.
right. And if you think about it that way, it might be a little bit easier to relate. But I think a lot of times we get stuck in our own sort of world and we don't look around and think, well, that could be me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real problem for some of us, because if we're not thinking that way, it's harder to be compassionate towards those
Absolutely.
needs. And then you're numb to the fact that you could easily be in that same position. But like someone with Joe, she's walking that path because she already knows how that feels. And
Absolutely.
she has that empathy and that compassion to do it. And I'm sure there are thousands of people in the city that have that empathy,
yes.
and it all for
There
a
are.
different situation. I think that's why we get life experiences the way we do, so that we have the ability to share them with others and help them walk that path a little easier.
And that's I think the other beautiful thing about the entire structure, being faith-based, being Christ-centered, is walking that walk and showing folks that it's okay to love your Lord and Savior and to walk this path and live in faith and
treat your neighbor as yourself.
yes, and not just talk the talk. I
Right.
mean, we talk about it all the time. Okay, it's great, talk a good game, hey, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing to help people today?
Right.
What are you going to do to help people this weekend? The last time I was on, I gave the starfish analogy, and in this case, I get to live that every day. I get to be chucking starfish every single day and trying to make a difference in people's lives, and it takes some patience,
Oh, yeah.
because not every starfish is going to stay in the ocean, and that's okay. But you have to help. You have to offer it up. You have to serve with absolutely no regard for what you're going to get out of it.
It's no expectation.
Zero.
Having expectation is not going to do anything for you in that situation.
That's not service.
No, it's not. It's like looking for something out of it, right?
Yeah.
There's no accolade that comes from
Yeah.
and besides, the best feeling really is like when you go out and work for a day, whether it's Habitat, whether you're at the food bank. I know our church, that was a big thing they do during the holidays, especially, as they go and they donate food, but they also fill the funnel.
Yeah.
And during Fill the Funnel, it's like all these different people from our church are down there, and it feels good to
Yeah.
give back to your community.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing that compares to that feeling of doing good in your community and feeling like you gave somebody a leg up or a hand out to where they have an opportunity to eat a meal that they wouldn't have otherwise known where it was going to come from. It's a big deal.
We talked when we were at Habitat, we saw so many stories come through, and it just really hammered home the truth of a couple of different pictures that come up for me when you're on site and doing those things. When you build a Habitat house, for example, it's more important than walls and a roof. It's a kitchen table where kids can sit and do their homework. Okay,
It's a safe place for them to sleep at night.
Yes, I mean, and the value of a yard is much more than the property value, right? A kid having his or her own yard to play in and invite their friends over and grow up there. The value of that yard and the value of that kitchen table is so much more than a furniture bill or some sod. It creates a powerful place for that family to grow and thrive.
Absolutely.
And I get goosebumps when I think about some of the most incredible people I've met have come directly out of a path of adversity.
Absolutely.
And it's always the basis of somebody helped me, somebody gave me the opportunity, I was given this thing, and in this moment I realized I had value and I had worth and I could move forward. And it just means a ton to me. But I don't want to, I could talk about this forever, but I do want to turn to the incubator because I do think that that's a really important, it is so cool. It's almost like Shark Tank for nonprofits, but nobody loses.
Right. So we're calling it the Quarry. That's City Connections. The concept being a quarry is where you dig out rocks, polish them up, and build something amazing with those rocks. I think our scripture is from Isaiah, and it talks about building the temple from these quarried stones.
Perfect for Little Rock that you're just going to build it around the idea of rocks.
I mean, we didn't just come up with this. Yeah, we grind on this. We grinded on this for a long time, but that's really the concept. And so we spent a lot of time with Wayne, just picking his brain because that
guy's
dude
got a brilliant mind.
He's amazing.
Once you open it,
he's amazing.
Like
I love him to
labyrinth.
death. It is, and he thinks about things to do for the right reasons with nothing in return. It's always do the right reason or do right thing for the right reasons. And so, we've got friends at the Junior League and they house some nonprofits, and our friends at the Fruoff Foundation, they've got space for nonprofits. But there's really not set curriculum out there.
Right.
And it's way more than here's how to write a budget and here's how to fill out your 501c3.
Those things are important.
They're extraordinarily important, but how do you build a board? How do you engage volunteers? How do you engage
How do you raise
donors?
money?
Yeah.
Exactly. How do you fundraise? How do
Organize
you
events.
organize events? How do
Brand
you
awareness so people know
Right.
you're there.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, so many nonprofits like, well, I just don't know where to start. Well, there's tons of folks out there like our friends here at Mimas that can help you with social media and help you with your presence. And but just getting people to understand that there's more to it than three-legged puppies with eye patches.
Well, and that's the thing is, and Justin, you're a consultant, so you
Right.
you dive deep into this part of it, and it's one of those things that I didn't even really think about how powerful that was until we were talking before the show about people can come to you and say, look, I have this idea. There's all this extra, I make clothes, and every time I finish making clothes, I have all this extra fabric,
Right.
And I could easily make more clothes for children or whatever. What do I do?
Right.
What do I do?
Yeah. How do I go about it? Right.
How do I donate all the rest of this fabric and my extra effort and
Yeah.
teach? Maybe I teach girls who are or boys whoever coming out of high school or in high school that need something to do to learn a new skill.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to be fashion designers. Maybe they
Absolutely.
can come in here and make clothes with the remnants. How do I build
Yeah.
that nonprofit?
Well,
Pretty
so
good idea, actually.
yeah,
It is actually, now that you mention it,
We
maybe
just
you
started
need to
to
go
cover
through
right
the
now.
Impact Accelerator.
Yeah, I just created mine. I entered.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I started my consulting business after spending some time at a lot of different levels at different nonprofits, volunteer management and program design and fundraising and being an executive director, because I realized that there just weren't supports for people who wanted to start new nonprofits or people who wanted to make an impact in the community.
Right.
So I started my business to help people in that situation. And that's why it lines up perfectly with what we're wanting to do. We launched this project to take folks like that example and build those supports for the people, build the infrastructure on which they can make a community impact.
Right.
So in your example of if you have this extra fabric and you want to start an organization, the first thing that I ask people, because I'll go to coffee with anybody for free and hear about your idea and give you some feedback. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, who else is doing this?
Right.
Who else in our community is helping people in that situation?
Right.
Or helping with to get the extra fabric somewhere where it can be made into something useful.
Right.
Who else is doing it? And if you tell me no one, my first instinct is going to be not to believe you, because we probably just haven't done your
They probably
homework.
just haven't gotten the brand awareness to let you know that
Yes.
they're doing
That's
it.
exactly
Even,
Yes.
then my mind went to the lady at the Bramble Market who takes old flannel shirts and she bleaches
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
and puts pearl snaps on them, and then
Yeah.
they become this cool other thing. But anyway,
Right.
so yeah, there's probably somebody out
There's
there.
probably, with
that-
14,500 nonprofits in the States, probably someone else is doing it.
Right.
So then my question to you is, okay, are they doing it well? Do you have some knowledge, skills, and abilities that are lacking at that
Are
organization?
you guys friends? Because you maybe link up.
Then
Exactly.
how can I put the two of you together?
Right.
And can you work with that organization to expand or build upon what they're already doing? Now, sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is the folks who are doing this work are doing it in a very specific way that doesn't serve, that leaves people over here out.
Right.
Or the people who are doing this work just don't have the knowledge, skills, and abilities they need to do the work effectively. So in that case, it's going to be a matter. That's where I would say, let's think about starting a new nonprofit that could meet that unmet need.
Right.
But that's an important phrase. Is it an unmet need?
Right.
Because if this is a need that's already being met, I'm going to take you to those people who are doing it and encourage you with all my might to come alongside them and to do that work together.
Yeah,
Because-
and I love animals, but there's a million different
Exactly.
nonprofits for animals, and I never know which. I'll just take all the dogs home. I don't know. I don't know what else
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a lot of them. So.
Well, but we just helped one of our friends. He wanted to start a basketball league, which is great. That sounds fantastic. Well, he had some people giving him advice to go spend between $2,000 and $3,000 to hire a lawyer and start his nonprofit. Which, if you've got $2,000 or $3,000 that you don't care about,
Yeah, it's the
by
best
all
way to
means,
do it.
go ahead, because
Poor
that's-
attorneys. They're like, oh, see
No,
you.
Well, and
No,
at the end of the day, I am not an attorney. So
Right.
I am very clear with folks. I cannot give you legal advice. What I
Right.
can do
Right.
is tell you, like from the field, here is what I have done and has worked and I have seen be successful in these situations. So, starting a nonprofit is
It's not hard.
It's not hard, but it's a fairly complicated thing because you have to go to the state of Arkansas,
Right.
you have to go to the IRS, and you have to go back to the state of Arkansas and get all your ducks in a row. And if you don't, if you've never seen a duck, it's hard to get them in a row.
Yeah.
So whereas
Unless you're the mama duck, she
Right.
needs to have it.
Exactly.
You know?
So,
they
you
get
know,
to a certain age.
starting a nonprofit's not terribly complicated,
there's a lot
really,
of
when you get
steps.
to it. But there's a lot of steps to get in line. So you can pay people a lot of money to do all of that. You can do it yourself. It just kind of depends on what your resources look like. But again, that's why I go all the way back to: is this something that you actually need to start a nonprofit for?
Before you start spending the money.
Before you start spending
and
the
we will help you start your 501c3.
Did the basketball league, did it get started?
Yeah, so I think you're
It's
working with
kicking off.
Ronnie.
Yeah. I mean, we're
Hi, Ronnie.
working on. Yeah, hey, we're working on getting that kicked off and making sure everything's in place. But again, for him, he has a very specific need. Let's go back to your example with all of the animal welfare groups. Okay, my aunt lives in Yell County, rural place, gets dogs dumped on her farm all the time. Well, she didn't start a nonprofit to deal with those dogs. That might be nice to have extra money getting donated for dog food and all this. She connected with a nonprofit that takes the dogs to states that have mandatory
Right.
spay and neuter, and then adopts those dogs out in that state. There are a lot of organizations do that.
Right.
So instead of starting her own nonprofit, she just said, I still want to do good work, so I'm going to take these dogs in and get them fed and get them their shots and get them ready to go, and then I'm going to hand them off and let them do the work that they do.
Right.
I don't need to start a new nonprofit for that. I can do that work with something that's already happening and it's working very effectively.
She's one duck, and then they're one duck. And
Exactly.
Then there's another duck.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. And so, part of the Impact Accelerator will be helping identify, is this a nonprofit? Is this
Yeah.
something you need to do?
Is there a need that's not being met?
Right.
And if there is a need that's being met, but maybe hasn't been met to the degree in which it could be,
Right.
based on the addition that you have, then maybe, because I know a lot of times too, and I've seen this, like I have the jewelry and the things that they make, when a lot of times human trafficking, when people are rescued from that,
Yeah.
a lot of times making things with their hands is a therapeutic way to do things. And so maybe if you have the remnants and you combine with the person who needs to make something with their
See,
hands,
you should
Right.
just
then
be
they
a
can
nonprofit professional.
Okay,
You
I
got
quit.
it.
Yeah. But
yeah.
our purpose at the nonprofit, at the Impact Accelerator, is going to be Jamie, you come to us with an idea. Okay, let's flesh that out and see. And at the end of this process, you're either going to have a memorandum of understanding with an existing nonprofit to do that programming, you're going to start a new nonprofit to meet that unmet need, or you're going to produce a case study on the problem and the solution so that we have that in our community impact library and it's available for nonprofits to use as a starting
tool,
point,
yeah.
for those things. And so that, we're very specific about our outcomes there with folks who come to us with ideas. And we're very clear with folks about, hey, I know that you want this to be a new organization that provides a salary for you and you get to spend your life work on something you're passionate about. That's a very rare outcome. So how do we, is it more about you and wanting to do this, or is it more about getting this done and making an impact? Because if you're in that space, I can work with you.
Right.
But if we're hung up on, well, gosh, I want to be doing this, that's a harder place to work from.
Right. Well, and I appreciate you saying that, because what Steve said at the beginning ties perfectly to what you just said. There are more people willing to help than there are people who need help.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of matching them together and
Absolutely.
making sure that we're all on the same page.
1000%.
Yeah, I don't even know. I'm so thankful that you guys came on the show, but I'm even more thankful we ran into each other the other day. And
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
goes to show Little Rock's such a small town. We might have
yes.
known each other before, but we're in the same spot. You had literally walked out of a meeting with Wayne.
That's
I was
right.
sitting
Yeah.
downstairs, and here we are. And I just appreciate your effort and your energy and what you've put into our community and continue to put into our community. And I'm going to be watching
Absolutely.
to see what happens with this accelerator.
You're
And-
probably going to have to come be a guest speaker.
well, now I
yeah.
have an idea, so
There
I'm
you go.
definitely going
Yeah.
to come pitch that.
There you
Come
go.
on
Well,
down.
I don't
we'll,
have a sewing machine yet.
we should
Yeah.
have this launched for real. This is kind of our pre-launch tour in the next, I don't know, week
This
and a
is
half.
exclusive news coverage.
This is.
This is breaking
news.
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to have him
It's
put like a
exclusive.
breaking news banner.
Yeah.
at the bottom.
Yeah, do the graphics. Yeah.
Okay.
JT, thank you so much. We
Yes.
love you and appreciate everything you do in this community.
Well, we love you guys, and the whole goal is to expose people like you to the community. So those of you who are looking for a place to volunteer your effort, your energy, your time, if your church has something that you know could be bigger, if it was paired with something like this in the community, then reach out and go to cityconnectionsinc.org and get in touch with Steve or with J-Buck. I like that we both have the J one syllable.
Yes, going for us.
So I'm excited, and I'm thankful to you guys for coming on the show. So we'll
Thank
see you
you.
next time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Can I
You'll
be the first
third
3
timer?
Sweet. I'm so
Jeez,
ready.
Perfect. Thank you guys for being on the show.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie.
Little Rock, see you next time. So good.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
Oh.